Hello, my name is Carole. This is my sewing room and this is my channel, Sew Carole. This is a very different video for me. It's something I've been wanting to do, but I wondered if you'd be interested in finding out the result like me. Now, my channel's always about sewing and garments, and I do let-a-low and crafts and things like this. And there are so many videos that I have said, I've got all these patterns, all these drawers are in these patterns, and I've got all these patterns here. I really want to know for myself, and it's not for anybody else, I really want to know how many patterns I actually have, because I want to know how many patterns I have, and I want to know what percentage of patterns I've sewn. Now this is just me, this is just for me, but I wondered if I would film this and you'd be interested in it too. Now obviously I'm not going to sit here and count through. Now these drawers here are full of patterns. I have these binders that hold the envelopes. They're always falling off. Can you see they're falling off? They're always falling off. So they are how I'm going to count them. And I'm not going to just sit through and count them with you. I'm going to do it now. I'm going to do it today, and I'm going to count how many I've got, and then I'm going to update you along the way. I do hope you enjoy this video. It's just something fun, something light-hearted, but I know probably if you've got if you're really tech savvy, and you probably know how many patterns you've got because you've probably got them on Stash Hub or whatever. For me, I don't know, and I really want to know. I want to know. So I do hope you enjoy this video. How I'm going to start doing it is I'm going to go through these files. Now, this is how old school I am. So I'm going to got Simplicity, New Look, McCall's, Butterick, Quick Sew and Birder. Now I know I haven't got many of those, or I've got loads of those. So I'm going to just do a tally for the ones I've sewn and the ones I haven't sewn, and I'll come back to you. Update. So far I've just counted all the pattern envelopes I have in there. Now obviously it's not going to be accurate because I might have a couple of random around the rooms. These is my tallies. I have to say, from a glance, you can see this is the unsewn, this is the sewn. I've sewn more than I have unsewn, so that's really good news. And the figures so far aren't as high as I thought they would be, so that's quite positive, because I pictured myself having about 1,000 patterns in there. So that's so far. So now I'm going to count the indie patterns. Now the indie patterns I just have in the drawers in the envelopes. So I'm going to just count those as a bulk. This is where you have to laugh, because obviously I've got these lovely drawers for these patterns, and then the indies are here. I've also got mixed up in that. I'll just show you all my let-a-low ones that I've done as well. So obviously I just take a photocopy and I put the number on there. So those are my indie patterns. Not that many, is it? Do you know what surprised me? I got 46 indie patterns. That really did surprise me, actually, how many were in there. Obviously, compared to all the rest I have, that's a really small percentage. I've also counted the let-a-low patterns that I've actually drawn out. Now in here I have, and I'll show you in a minute, a binder full of patterns, but those are the ones I've actually drawn out. And I've got 15 of my own patterns. So these are ones that I've traced off, like a t-shirt I've traced round, or a dress for my daughter, bought from a shop, so I've just traced around it. So those are patterns as well. So I've got 15 of those. These are the let-a-low supplements that I have. Now I'm not going to count these. I'm going to count the ones that I physically bought myself, because of course I've got all these let-a-low supplements, and in each supplement is about 35 patterns. But obviously they're going to be stuff that I'm never going to wear. Like there's a wedding dress pattern in this one. So I'm not going to count these, but I will just show you how many I've got, sort of the access to how many that I would want. Now this kind of goes the same for the Birder magazines that I've got. Obviously you get loads in there, whether you'll use maybe a couple, if that. So I'm gonna say I've got access to these patterns. Yeah, I think I'll say I have access to these patterns rather than I actually have these patterns, because there's so many in here that I would never make. I've just counted the fact I've got 14 supplements. If there's 35 in there, that's 490 patterns I've got access to in these. I can honestly say that these results aren't anywhere what I thought they would be. I honestly thought I had about 1,000 patterns, but actually going through, unless I've missed a huge chunk, I'm really surprised by my figures. I've often bragged about I've got hundreds of patterns in there. I have got hundreds, but nowhere near the amount. And what is the most surprising to me is actually the percentage of patterns I've sewn. This is giving me a real boost actually, because I thought, and obviously lots of people know I got loads of patterns, but I've actually sewn a majority of them. And when I was going through all those files, the skirts, the trousers I'd made a lot of, the tops I'd made a lot of, but the one where I really started filling up the other side, the unsewn, was all the dresses. I have so many dress patterns that I have never sewn. Now, I know a lot of these patterns will have come from magazines. You know, when you used to get sewing magazine, you used to get, say, 3 free patterns, free. So that's where I've come, and I've obviously hung on to them. Now, through the years, obviously, I've got rid of chunks of them, but these are ones I've kept, but I haven't sewn. And that is where I was doing really good up until I did the dress file, because that's where the unsewn really started to build up. So what have I got? Right. Probably the best thing to do is if I've written it down in my book. I'll give you a total of the big 4, and then I'll do the indies, and I'll tell you the percentage of ones I've sewn. The hilarious thing is I've only got 6 Vogue patterns, and I've only ever sewn 1. So that shows that I don't sew Vogue for some reason. And the only Vogue pattern I did actually sew was a fancy dress one. So these are the figures. So I got Simplicity, New Look, Vogue, McCall's, Butter It, Quick Sew, Bird and Style. And obviously I'm not going to talk about all of them. I just shift over so it doesn't catch the light. As you can see, the most patterns I've got is New Look, and I've only got 116 of them, and I was convinced I had like 500. And 72%, these are the percentage of actual ones I've sewn up. So how many I've sewn up? So Simplicity, I've sewn 54%, and that was mainly down to dress patterns actually. I was doing really well, as I said before them. New Look, I've sewn 72% of the patterns I've got, and obviously you've got 60%. One of the best ones actually is Quick Sew, 68%, apart from New Look. So as you can see, I am a New Look fan, and I've sewn at least 72% of my patterns. I did have one style pattern. It's a very old pattern, and I've sewn that, so that's 100%. So I hope you're finding this interesting. I am finding this fascinating. I love facts and figures. So now let's just have a look at indie patterns and the percentage I've sewn up for them. So I have 46 indie patterns. Some of them again have actually come from magazines. I've sewn 63% of them. So I've sewn 29 of them. So that's not bad. When I was going through them, I worked out that whenever I've bought one specifically to make it, rather than bought them because I like the look of them. So very often if I do buy an indie pattern, I do sew it up. The figure just got elevated because of the ones that I've got free from magazines, which had to be fair. So how many have I got in total? That's the big question, and honestly I am shocked. I hope you're finding this interesting. Now, it's a shame my husband isn't here today, because as you know, he's an amateur drummer and he could do an amazing drum roll for me right now. But ta-da! Here it is. Here is the total. I have got 377 patterns. I thought I had way more than that. I've drawn out 13 Latalo, and my own patterns is 15. So I've got a total of 405 patterns. That's it. I know it seems a lot of, but What I will say is I've sewn 60% of the big four, 63% of the indies. So I'm actually really proud of that. Of course, what I'm not mentioning is my Latalo, where I have 490 patterns, access to them, but we won't count them. So there we go. Honestly, I'm really thrilled. This has been the most genuine video I think I've ever done, where I've been learning the same time as you. Now, is it bad to have patterns? Is it good to have just a few patterns? As I said, a lot of these have been gifted to me, or I found in a charity shop, or came from sewing magazines, or I've just fancied buying. I don't do massive pattern hauls. We can't do that in our country, in England, because they cost a lot of money. So I'm pleased with my results, and so now when I say in my sewing room on a Friday says, I've got thousands of patterns in this drawer, I really haven't. I've only got 405. As I said, this isn't judging. I'm just pleased with myself that I've made so many of the patterns I have, and the ones I haven't made, I can kind of understand why I haven't, because they're probably for occasions that I would never need, or maybe will need in the future. Thank you so much for joining me. I don't know whether you'll have enjoyed this video or not, but I thought I would film the process just in case you did. Please join me again in my sewing room for a more normal video on what I've been sewing or making, or my fabric wheel. Thank you again. See you soon, and happy sewing, and never feel guilty about what we've got in our sewing rooms.